I believe we were the first company to leave the Valley. When we left the Valley, it was looked at as something completely crazily ridiculous. Who could leave the Valley? Now, lots of people are leaving the Valley. And part of the reason they're leaving the Valley is because the brand of the Valley is not good. And it's not good because they can't answer simple questions. What does your software do to help somebody? And the answer will be, I give a lot of money to philanthropy. Well, I'm all in favor of philanthropy, but there has to be a more direct answer. What does your business do? Or maybe there should be a more direct answer. Our company does nothing to help humanity, and we're okay with that. If you're sitting on your perch in Silicon Valley and you're only creating value for yourself, monetizing the natural resources of your fellow Americans and others in the form of monetizing their data and providing no value to them, except for disrupting the businesses that people work at, you're going to find that your level of trust, it goes really down really far quickly. And I don't think this is something you can kind of IQ your way out of, which is, I think, essentially one of the problems in Silicon Valley. They just think that they're so smart that they can smart their way out of this. But it's just so obvious. I'm very happy with our decision to move to Denver for lots of reasons, including a lack of a complete monoculture that you have in Silicon Valley that you don't have in other places. I think there will be a wider distribution of tech companies outside of Silicon Valley in America. The real problem on how America does in that context also comes down to the unwillingness of a number of tech companies and engineers to support the US government. Now, I don't think everything the US government does is right. I don't agree with a lot of things. I'm a citizen, and like many people, I'm sure everyone listening, we have our agreements and disagreements. But the odd reality that many in Silicon Valley are not willing to support the US government in military context is something that should be a source of great discussion. And I, for one, always want to hear, well, if that's the case, how do you justify the fact that you're building your company in the US and driving on our highways and getting protection from countries that are unhappy with the encroachment on their sovereignty simply because they don't want to offend the US government and our taxpayers? So that is a really big issue in America, that many of our software elites have a very different view on how you should support the country that has supported us than, say, we do at Palantir and I do personally. I really think it's a cultural problem. They're sitting in their perch in Silicon Valley where they're the smartest, the best, and the richest. They don't understand how they're viewed in society or how that's viewing our society. And then when asked, can they help America, they tend to think this is a super difficult question that should be litigated with the 1 or 2 or 5 engineers in their company that don't agree with helping the US government. And I think it's a cultural problem. And that's why so many of us have left this culture.
On the technology side, I think that Silicon Valley will continue producing great companies, but perhaps not quite as many. For the last 20 years, you had this very strange dynamic where Silicon Valley was the only place where innovation in the United States really happened. And even though the internet was supposed to eliminate the tyranny of place, you somehow had all the internet companies happening in one particular place. And I think my judgment is that this will be much more distributed in the future, much more outside of Silicon Valley. There are certain pluses and minuses to Silicon Valley. The big advantage is that you have all the talent, all the capital in one place, and so you have these extraordinary network effects. And that's been a motor of Silicon Valley for a long time. But there's a point where network effects go very wrong, and where sort of the network effects, the fact that everyone's super connected, everyone knows what everyone's thinking, everyone ends up thinking the same thing, and it sort of shifts over into the madness of crowds. And I think that somehow we've gotten to a point where perhaps the negatives are greater than the positives.